Today's story really has just a wild plot twist. And that's kind of what we do on this channel. We look for stories with crazy plot twists. This is a big one. So the story opens with these officers, these police officers in Lebanon that have been sent to this beach to go investigate this strange object on the sand. And they go to this object and they're sort of bewildered by it. And as the story progresses, you have a pretty good idea of what this is, why it happened, and likely what's going to be the outcome. But then at the very end of the story, when you're like, yeah, this is pretty predictable, it just goes completely into left field. And you're going to be left being like, I've never heard a story like that. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload 2, 3, even 4 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please sneak into the like button's house and take all their ball caps and fold the bill into Mickey Mouse ears. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story.
Help! Help! That's wrong. That's wrong.
One night in late January of 1965, a police officer named Fareed Jaber, along with another officer, his partner, were walking along a beach in Antilias, Lebanon, which is a tiny village just north of Beirut. The weather was absolutely terrible. It was freezing out, it was pouring rain, and it's nighttime, so it's dark out. I mean, this is a pretty nasty time to be out, walking around. As much as Fareed and very likely his partner would have desperately liked to have been home in bed right now, they knew that, they both needed this job, especially Fareed. It paid well and he couldn't afford to lose it, and so sometimes doing this job, being a cop, was pretty uncomfortable, and he'd sort of just accepted that. Now, the reason that Fareed and his partner were out here right now patrolling this beach in this terrible weather was because somebody had called in and said that they saw something odd on the beach, and they thought maybe it could be a dead body, or it could just be a body, period. They didn't know, but there was something odd on the beach, and so the police were called to go have a look. Now, this part of Lebanon was considered pretty safe. So, the idea of bodies turning up sort of out on the beach or out, in public anywhere was just sort of unheard of. And so Fareed and his partner really didn't expect to walk up on a dead body or something. In fact, Fareed really just expected to find some dead sea creature or something, or maybe some trash, he didn't know what. But, as he's walking along with his jacket pulled around tight and he's scanning the beach with his flashlight, battling the weather, he just felt kind of annoyed that they were out here. Like, this is going to be nothing. Like, why are we even being called out here? There's no way there's literally a body on the beach right now. But sure enough, as Fareed and his partner continued walking along the beach, looking around with their flashlights, far down the beach, right in the middle of the sand, they did see this odd object just laying out on the sand. And even at first glance, from a distance, it did look human-like. It definitely had the form where it could be a person. And so right away, Fareed and his partner are like, clearly that's what was called in. This is what we're here to investigate. Now, the two of them didn't run over to whatever this was. They have no idea what's going on here. I mean, if this really is a person, they don't know why they're here, if there's somebody that hurt them that's in the vicinity. So they're playing it safe. They're walking up slowly, scanning the whole beach, looking for any other indication of, whatever this is. Maybe there's other things that are odd on the beach, but there was nothing. It was just this odd body-like thing on the sand. But as they got closer, Fareed in particular, he's looking at this object and he's like, that is definitely a person. I can tell that's a body on the ground. But there was just something odd about the body. It just looked off. There was just something unnatural about it. There's something that he couldn't put his finger on, but he's gonna find out when he gets close.
So, call for backup. You know what I mean? Just, work. Hey. I see a body on the ground, right? I'm not saying, but I'm not saying that it looks a little off. I'm just saying, just stand by, just in case. Just, you know what I mean? Yeah. Just because the two of us out here don't mean nothing, like for real. Like, I'm just saying. Come on. Just, be ready to go.
so Fareed and his partner, they get closer and closer, and both their flashlights are trained on this human-like thing, and then finally they're standing right over it, and they look down, and for sure, this is a person. But they could now see, now that they're right up close, why this person seemed off. And it was because this body was missing its head.
Ho-ho!
Now, right away, it seemed fairly apparent to Fareed and his partner that this body, one, belonged to a man, and two, very likely they did not die of like an accidental drowning and get washed up on shore or something. Very likely, especially because of the decapitation, this man was murdered. Somebody killed him and likely dumped him here, or maybe dumped him in the water and then he washed up here. But this is foul play. And so Fareed and the partner, they're like, okay, we got to search the area, do a cursory search, and just make sure, whoever did this isn't just nearby. We need to secure the scene. And so they drew their guns and they walked the area, but there was nobody else there. The beach is totally, desolate, minus this body and the police officers. And so after doing that cursory search and coming back to the body, Fareed and his partner began talking about what they were gonna do. Now remember, this is the mid-1960s in a small rural village in Lebanon. So this is not like a robust police department that Fareed and his partner were a part of. They did not have, huge resources to process this, vicious homicide, or at least what it looked to be a vicious homicide. They didn't even have radios to call in backup. I mean, they knew at best what they'd be able to do here is maybe by tomorrow, they could have a couple more officers come out and begin to investigate and see what happened here. But
Oh, shit. They can call for backup? That's clucked. No. So they get clucked up, that's it. That's it. Oh my God.
just to do that, it would require literally going back to the station and rallying support and explaining what's going on and coming up with a plan and going out and doing that. And so as they're sort of talking through what they should do, because again, also remember, this is not an area where homicides take place either. I mean, this is pretty anomalous. So they don't even necessarily know how to process a homicide, but they say, okay, our best bet is one of us just needs to stay here with the body, basically guard the crime scene. And the other will go back to the station and file the paperwork and get this machine in motion so that tomorrow we can actually begin investigating. So basically one of them would have to stay the night, literally on the beach in the freezing cold and the rain next.
Bobby, go ahead. You stay right here next to me. I'm gone. Am I coming back? I don't know. Yeah, Bobby, you go ahead and stay right there next to the body. I'm not. I promise you, I'm giving you the hands if you think I'm about to stay here with the body. We fight for it right now, I promise you.
To this dead body to make sure nobody came back to claim it or desecrate it in some way. And as they're talking about who was going to do that, Fareed was the more junior officer, and so pretty quickly it became clear that he was going to have to do it. And again, going back to the earlier part in the story where Fareed, he knew this job could be very uncomfortable sometimes, but he needed this job. He needed the income. He couldn't afford to lose this job. And so when it was sort of clear this was going to be his doing, he said, fine, I'll stay here. I'll stay with the body. You go, get the investigation started, and I'll see you tomorrow. Now, after Fareed's partner had left and had walked down the beach and disappeared, Fareed sort of realized just how bad this night was going to be. I mean, think about it. Not only is the weather awful, but he's literally, sitting next to a decapitated body. He's going to be just, in the company of this dead body all night. And on top of that, he suspects that somebody has killed this guy. This guy's been murdered. And maybe this body has been dumped here by the murderer. And even though they did a cursory search, it wasn't 100% certain that the killer or killers were not somewhere in the area. And so Fareed's thinking okay, I have to guard the body and be careful not to get attacked by the killer who could be, nearby. I mean, this is straight out of a nightmare. But, at the same time, Fareed's thinking to himself, I'm a trained police officer. I have my...
Yeah, no. Just because you're not that trained. You know what I mean? The person that left is he's the more experienced one. I feel like he should have just stayed with the body, And And the less experienced one go and get help or get like some more officers or whatever. Like slick, I feel like this is a setup, but you know,
my issued gun and my issued knife. I'm not completely defenseless here. If somebody were to come out here and attack me, you know, I could hold my own. I could defend myself. And so he's at least telling himself that. And so as the rain continues to just pound down on Fareed, you know, he's shivering, he's miserable. You know, he knows he's supposed to be alert and, you know, watching this crime scene. He's not supposed to sleep, but he's so uncomfortable that he finds himself getting down on the sand and kind of, you know, getting into the fetal position, you know, trying to find a little bit of comfort. And at some point he does get a little comfortable, in fact, so comfortable that despite how awful it was outside, he did fall asleep at maybe 2, 3 in the morning. And so Fareed falls asleep, and then a few hours later, he wakes up and he's in a panic because he knows he wasn't supposed to fall asleep. He's supposed to be guarding this crime scene to make sure nobody touches this body. And also remember, he thinks the killer could be out here, like it's an actual real possibility they might come back and do something to the body. And he's just fallen asleep. And so he kind of scrambles to his feet. He's taking stock of the scene. You know, it's still raining, it's still cold and dark out. And he turns and he looks where the body was supposed to be, and it's gone. The body is gone. And so instinctively, he's thinking, oh, the killer's nearby. They must have grabbed the body. He reaches for his gun, and his holster's empty. And so now it's like truly a nightmare scenario for Fareed. He was supposed to be here to watch the crime scene, and he allowed the body to be taken, and he's been disarmed. Now, fortunately, he had his, you know, service knife, and he pulled that out. That's all he's got at this point. But he's thinking, I'm screwed. Like, what happened? Where did it go? Where'd the...
What if this shit was a test?
body go? Where'd my gun go? What do I do? And so he starts thinking, well, wait a minute, maybe an animal came by and grabbed the body and dragged the body and it's nearby. And he's sort of like looking up and down the beach and he's thinking, you know, it could be pretty far away, but he sees there's no drag marks. There's no way the body could have been dragged by an animal. And then also what, an animal came back and unclipped his holster and took his gun out and took that away? That doesn't make any sense. He would have at least woken up if that was happening. But then he's like, well, wait a minute, maybe a wave came up and grabbed the body and dragged it into the ocean. That's why it's not here. That's why there's no drag marks. But he looked at where he was sleeping, and almost certainly if the body had been struck with a big wave that dragged it into the ocean, Fareed would have been hit by that same wave and he would have woken up. And then also, again, who took his gun? And so the realization hit Fareed that the only explanation here is a person came over here while I was asleep, took the body, took my gun, and now they're gone. So the night before, Fareed, the officer who was, left on the beach to guard the scene, the one who fell asleep, Fareed, his cousin, a man named Habib Jaber, had been walking along the beach alone when he had been attacked. This man had robbed him and then killed him and decapitated him. And he had left Habib's body on the shore. But he had taken his head and the money he had stolen from him back to his home. But several hours later, the killer realized maybe it had been a mistake to leave so much evidence behind, namely leaving behind the headless body. Maybe that could get them in trouble. So they decide, okay, I'm gonna go back and get the body and bring it here as well to get rid of the evidence. But when the killer got back to the beach, back to the crime scene, he saw the body was now being guarded by a police officer. And that police officer was Fareed. Now, it's very important that you understand that Fareed, the officer, had no idea that the body he was guarding belonged to his cousin.
Jesus
All
Christ.
he knew was that this was a man who was killed. But because he was missing his head, he had not been able to identify him as his cousin. He just thought it was some stranger, some man had been killed, not his cousin. Now, when the killer got to the beach, he was about to turn around because he sees I can't do anything because, this officer is guarding the body, what can I do? But he snuck up a little bit closer and he realized the police officer, Fareed, he had fallen asleep on the job. And so while Fareed was sleeping, the killer did walk up, pick up the body, carry it off to his house, which was not far away. And he also went back and he took Fareed's gun out of his holster, all while Fareed was asleep. So literally the worst thing that Fareed thought could have happened, that he was basically duped by the killer while he slept, did happen. So after the killer has taken the body and the gun away from Fareed and he's back at his home down the beach, he decided what he would do is he would start a big fire and he would dispose of the body that way. He would burn it in the fire and that would get rid of all the evidence and he'd be just fine. And so as the killer is chopping up firewood, basically at the end of the beach, not far from Fareed, believe it or not, he's chopping up all this firewood. Fareed wakes up in a panic, realizing, oh my gosh, the body's gone, my gun's gone, what do I do? And Fareed turns and he sees there's this man at the end of the beach who's chopping wood. Now, Fareed has no idea that man is actually literally the killer of his cousin. He has no idea. He just thinks it's some random dude who lives at the end of this beach who's chopping wood. But Fareed, he's so desperate to salvage his job, he's gotta find this body, he's gotta find his gun. He's thinking, man, this guy, he lives so close to the crime scene, maybe he saw something strange. Maybe he can help me find the body and my gun. And so Fareed walks on down the beach, not realizing he's about to come face to face with his cousin's killer. Fast forward several hours, and Fareed's partner finally returns to the beach, now with a team of detectives, and they're ready to investigate. And Fareed's partner, at first glance, looks down to the sand and he sees, one person standing there next to what appears to be a headless body on the ground, and he thinks, okay, there's Fareed and there's the body. The scene is the same as it was when I left it. But when they got a little bit closer, Fareed's partner started to notice something. The body on the ground, it had the wrong clothes on. They're different than what the body had on last night. What's going on here? This discrepancy would be made clear once Fareed's partner got down right next to the body and really got a look at it. He saw clearly the body is not the same as the night before. It's not just the clothes. Fareed's partner didn't know this, but it's not Fareed's cousin. That's not who this is. But the body also did not belong to Fareed either. Fareed was standing right next to the body. In fact, it would turn out really nothing about the scene that Fareed's partner found on the beach that morning was what it appeared to be at first glance. He and the rest of the team had to spend the rest of the morning searching the beach and the entire neighboring village and conducting countless interviews with potential witnesses to finally put it all together and make sense of it. And by the end of that day, the story that they managed to put together was so totally bizarre that it made headlines all over the world.
It's the killer.
Because Fareed was so desperate to keep his job, when he walked down the beach to go talk to that man chopping wood to see if he knew anything about what happened to the body, where did it go,
It's the killer, isn't it? The original, his cousin that's dead, is nowhere to be found. And so that's Fareed standing next to the killer that is dead, right? Hold on.
See anything strange? As he was talking to this guy, again, not knowing it is literally the killer of your cousin. Fareed doesn't know this. He thinks it's a complete stranger. Fareed starts having this idea. He's like, well, wait a minute. I have my knife. What if I kill this man? No one's here. Cut his head off and put his body over there. No one will know. I'll replace the body. And so that's what Fareed did. He murdered this man, believing it was just some random guy to save his job. He's standing there when the partner comes down and he's like, look, I guarded the body. But it wasn't the body. It was a guy he murdered to save himself, but it just so happened to be that the guy he murdered was literally the killer of his cousin. Had no idea. And so even though in sort of a roundabout, backwards vigilante way, justice was done here. Fareed took out the killer of his own cousin. Even though that did technically happen, Fareed was still arrested for murder.
Oh, God. You do anything for your job, huh?
Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of today's episode in the comments. And remember, we have hundreds of videos for you to binge right now. But if you're looking for a recommendation from me of that one video that's worth your time, well, it's this one right here. So give it a watch. All right, until next time, see ya.
That is hilarious. But it's not really hilarious because it's like he really just murdered a random person. Like, what if that was really a random person That's crazy. I mean, Fareed is the type of person you need to watch out for, you know. Just for the job, I mean, he'll do anything. He'll do anything, you know. I feel like he's the type of person that would like do anything for not only his job, but like, you know, for his wife, for his kids, for his house, for his car, you know. That's crazy. I would say thank God it worked out, but it kind of didn't. I mean, it did, but it didn't. So, I'm guessing now his cousin and Fareed are just in the afterlife, you know, just chopping it up. No pun intended. No, that was crazy though. Watch out for people like him. Keep it cool. Keep it classy. I wonder if he got like life in prison. I don't know. Keep it cool. Keep it classy. And I love you. Stay happy. My family.